Matt Hancock is a national disgrace. We've seen this week that to a perfectly and beautifully put question by an MP, a Labour MP, Richard Bergen, in the House of Commons this week, the answer from Matt Hancock was one word, and it was no. And I'll tell you about this now. So basically, Richard Bergen, who's a Labour politician, posed this fantastic question that basically exposed the sheer incompetence of our government and put it into a global perspective by saying that countries like New Zealand, Australia, Vietnam, Thailand, all of these countries only have case numbers either in the hundreds or in the double figures, whereas we have over 100,000 cases. And he was basically asking Matt Hancock to reconsider the whole test and trace system and hand it back to the NHS rather than using Serco. And Matt Hancock stood up, and bearing in mind lives are at risk, he just stood up and said no. That is the health secretary of this country. He stood up and he said no and sat back down. It's an absolute disgrace, absolute disgrace.
And then after that, after the mockery that he made of government yesterday, he's made an even bigger mockery today by threatening that cancer patients will not be treated unless we abide by the rules and do as we're told in terms of coronavirus. I think that's absolutely appalling. His job as health secretary is to make sure that they're treated whatever happens. So
absolutely,
to make a threat as bad as that, to get people to do as they're told, is sick, it's appalling, and it's disgusting. And I think there is only one thing for Matt Hancock to do now, and that is resign.
Absolutely. It's inexplicable. There's no explaining
what
he's done this week.
No excuses.
No.
He's stuck in a corner now, and there is no way out.
The problem is that Boris isn't going to fire him. And he has got such a big ego, Matt Hancock, that he is not going to step down.
And so, I've noticed this with all the main Tory MPs. They're almost power hungry and power mad.
Yeah, they think they're indestructible.
They think they're indestructible, but as Matt Hancock has shown in the last few days, say or do something wrong, people will judge you by your actions, and people will be gunning for metaphorical blood, as it were. And I think, as I said before, the only thing Matt Hancock can do now is resign.
He doesn't care about you. That's what it comes down to. He does not give a toss how many people are dying in this country and how many people are infected with coronavirus. He doesn't have an ounce of empathy. He doesn't have any idea about how real people live, and he doesn't give a toss. So you may not want to hear it, but he does not care about you, and that's the reality. That is our health secretary. So he's got to. I agree, he's got to go, but he's not going to, is he? This is the problem. They've got such big egos that none of them can see themselves for what they are, and they've got such a thumping majority from the election that they think they're absolutely indestructible. And unfortunately, it's now backfiring on us big time, because we're now in this absolute catastrophe where we seem to be hurtling towards another national lockdown, it looks like to me. And I've said time and time again that I don't want it to happen, but this was down to the government to make sure it didn't happen. And this is why MPs such as Richard Bergen are raising questions like this, because we need the government to sort themselves out so that we can avoid another huge surge in cases. We're an international laughingstock. All these other countries that have got cases in the double figures and the hundreds, and we've got over 100,000 cases. They can't explain themselves. It is utter incompetence.
There is no excuses. Track and trace has failed. The first lockdown, I feel, was lifted far too early, and they tried to return life to normal business as quick as normal, so that people could go back to work, children could go to school, people could go out and socialize, and this has just come back to bite us all, and we are the ones who suffer.
Absolutely. Right, so rant over, I think, but thank you for watching the video. Remember to like and subscribe, and we'll be back with some more content soon.